Hi everyone, I am Josh. Welcome today to my spring TBR. I'm kind of in Australia, so technically it's my fall TBR, but it's all the same in the end. I know most people watching this are probably in the States or in the Northern Hemisphere specifically. It's hard to believe we're through the first quarter of the year. I don't want to spoil my wrap-up coming, but it was a pretty good first quarter. There were still a couple books here that are being carried over that I did not finish, but overall, most of what you ought to see are going to be new books. I will say I'm sticking to 15 books to the 15 biggest books I'm hoping to read. I am not going to be presenting books that are on my backlist TBRs. Those are books I'm planning on reading throughout the year. Some of those will be in my spring plans, but not necessarily in this list because I've already presented them in those videos. I'll make sure I link to those below. But with that said, the top 15 books I'm planning on reading for spring 2024. So first up is a book that was on my last TBR, one of the couple that are actually being carried over, and that is the Indian Lake Trilogy by Stephen Graham Jones, published in 2021, a total of over 1,300 pages across the entire trilogy. Of course, this is horror, thriller. It's a tribute to horror classics, the meta commentary of a horror movie aficionado recognizing that there are signs of a real-life slasher going on in our hometown, and it blends small-town anxieties with slasher film tropes. This is going to be for the third book coming out. I forget what it's called, but I've read the first one. I don't think I've read the second one yet, but the third one I got an arc for, so I need to read it, and it's going to be one of the first things I read in the first part of the year. I was traveling in March, so I didn't get as much done as I had planned, but this will be a high priority thing because I want to make sure I get this reviewed around the time that the book comes out. So expect this review and of this book coming very soon, honestly, by the time this goes up. And then up at number 2, another arc, Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes, published in 2024, coming out very soon. 377 pages, science fiction horror. It is a team of paranormal investigators descend to the haunted depths of an abandoned metro station, confronting the lingering horrors within. This was an audio arc that I got granted. I know S.A. Barnes had a very popular space horror in the last year or so. I became very close to reading it. I heard fine things, not spectacular things. I'm really hoping this works for me. Even if it's not like a spectacular book, I just want it to be a fun horror novel, and I think it might be that. So I was really excited when Macmillan Audio granted this audio arc. Honestly, didn't think I was going to get it. I thought this was one of those more popular books by Tor that would be too popular for me to get my hands on. But I actually have noticed that Macmillan Audio tends to be kinder to me than actually Tor is. So that's nice. And next up at number 3, another arc, Alien Earths by Dr. Lisa Kaltenegger, published in 2024, coming out in April, 288 pages, nonfiction astronomy. It's an informative, engaging nonfiction book from a renowned astrophysicist on the cutting-edge research in the search for habitable worlds outside of our solar system and the potential extraterrestrial life. If you're familiar with my channel, you'll know I'm really big into space science, especially when it comes to the search for life. It's no secret, I think, that some of my favorite books every year tend to be, at least a couple, are going to be those that talk about the search for alien life and just space travel in general. This is one who I believe she's the head of like the Carl Sagan Institute or something. I believe it's focused on specifically exoplanetary research, which is something that is one outside of the research that I do, which if you don't know, I'm a planetary scientist, but also an astrobiologist, more focused on worlds inside of our planetary system. But this is focused on what we can understand about worlds just using telescopes from far away. Different perspective, but obviously still very valid one. And if done right, it can easily be a favorite. I could see this going either way. It depends really on how well a communicator this author is. One that I'm actually highly anticipating, and you can hopefully expect a review, unless it's just extremely mediocre. You should expect a review from me coming out in the next month or so. Then up at number 4, we have another arc, The Age of Magical Overthinking by Amanda Montell, published in 2024, coming out also in April. 272 pages, nonfiction psychology. It's described as provocative and witty, a critical explanation of how the self-help industry's obsession with quote-unquote good vibes fuels overthinking and the dangers of toxic positivity. Again, this is for arc. This is one that I saw and was very intrigued by. Honestly, there were other books by this author I want to read that have to do with occult mentalities, so I think it would be really interesting. It's one of my favorite nonfiction books of my time on this channel. I have centered around psychology and specifically skepticism and how we tend to sometimes think poorly or get caught up in bullshit. And I'm really intrigued to see what this author has to say on the subject. I believe she is a PhD in linguistics. So that's a really interesting perspective to be approaching this from. Number 5, we have Find Me the Votes by Michael Iskoff, published in 2024. 352 pages. Is a political nonfiction book looking at the inside account of the chaotic 2020 presidential election and Trump's attempts at overturning that election and the conspiracies involved with it. This as well is an arc. This was one that was granted to me, I believe it's 12 Publishing. I reached out to them directly for an arc and they sent me a physical copy. So this is another one that I tend to expect to prioritize in the next month or so. You can expect a review from me, probably regardless if it's good or bad. I mean, it's going to be something that even if I find it a dull book, or rather a difficult book to get into, the subject matter will probably be enough to propel me to want to talk about what's going on. The book was published right before the most recent activity around Fani Willis and her special prosecutor, who's now been dismissed because of their relationship. A lot to say about that, but I'm going to wait till I read the book before I decide whether I'm actually going to be to that. It's relevant to me, well, it's relevant to everyone because it has to do with the president and his attempts to overturn the election. It's not a trivial thing, as trivialized as it seems to have become, because how normalized it seems, but also the fact that while I am in Australia, and before this Canada, my home is still Georgia. I'm a Georgia citizen, and to me, understanding the story of specifically related to Trump's attempts in Georgia it just hits especially close to home for me. That's another reason why I feel very strongly about talking about it. I'm actually really, really intrigued and excited to be getting this book. Then up at number 6, I think, The Source of Self-Regard by Toni Morrison, published in 2019. This is 354 pages. These are a series of essays by the Nobel-winning author exploring issues related to themes of race, power, and social injustice, and the role of an artist in confronting social issues. This is one I'm prioritizing for a few reasons. One, a goal of mine is to be reading anti-racist books, and I think this should fit into that realm, at least in some parts, but also because I got it granted on Libby and I want to get to it. On top of that, I've said I should be doing a live discussion of this with Erica from The Broken Spine. That should be coming up at some point in the somewhat near future. We have to figure out the exact time, but anticipate that in the next quarter. That is a plan of mine, hence it being here on this list. It's the first, one of the few books on this list that are not an arc, just something that I just want to read. And up at number 7, we have Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, published in 2017. This is 1,243 pages. It's epic fantasy and adventure, focusing on the stories of our heroes in this sort of epic fantasy world created by Brandon Sanderson. If you don't know, I've edited Brandon Sanderson in the last few years. Most people have. I had trouble though. It was in December that I think I read the second book, and that was when I officially realized I'm completely invested, and I'm really excited to be moving on to this next book. I'm trying to think, why didn't I get to one last quarter? I think because of the way it's working out, I'm trying to schedule them such that I read this third book and then the fourth book, and I guess somewhere in there, of course, the novella that's in between them, before the 5th book in November. So I'm trying to time it so that I keep myself excited, but also don't let myself forget what's going on when it comes to the new release. I'm super psyched to be on track to do that. I've said it already. Like, to be able to be a part of the community, discussing the book, thinking about the book when it comes out, will be a new experience. Obviously, everyone knows about Brandon Sanderson. Everyone knows how popular it is, and it's just we're all here on BookTube, whether we're watching or participating, because we like the community, and I'm looking forward to that aspect, being able to engage with the community in that way. Coming up at number 8, we have Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Everasto, published in 2019, 453 pages. It's feminist and dealing with identity and empowering book, interweaving different stories of a Black British woman exploring their diverse experiences, navigating themes of love, family, and identity, and the challenges that they face. This is one that I wanted to read for so long, ever since it came out, but I've been so nervous because it feels literary. It seems like it should be literary, but everything I hear about it has just been positive. Like, it's really accessible, it's really easy to get into it, and very engaging. And so I want to prioritize. I came very close to reading it actually during Blackathon. Oh, I did a whole vlog for that. Check it out if you haven't seen it. I love doing that vlog. It took a lot of work, not gonna lie, but I almost read it, and that was when I decided I definitely want to plan to read it coming up. This is one that I just want to prioritize because of how much I wanted to read it. I've just been nervous. I just had this expectation that it's going to be difficult, despite everything I've heard suggesting otherwise. Then up at number 9, Goodbye, Mr. Chips by James Hilton, published in 1934, 128 pages. This is a classic story dealing with a beloved teacher at a traditional English boys' school reflects on his long career, the students he's inspired, and the changes he has witnessed. I am reading this for a video project, the same one that I have alluded to in my backlist TBRs that you may or may not have seen. Whether or not you can make the connection, it's up to you. I don't know if it cares that much, but I'm working my way through this slowly but steady. This book could have gone on my backlist TBR, but to be frank, I did not want to overwhelm my backlist TBR with all the books I'm reading for this special project I'm doing, because then it would become obvious what the project was if you saw them all together. I'm really excited. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away what the project is for, but the premise appeals to me for reasons that will become clear if and when that video ever comes out, hopefully in the next several months. Then, before I get to the next list, I'll just say the next set of books are going to be prioritized for the Asian Readathon, which I'm assuming Cindy from Cindy Reads, I believe what it's called now, it changes sometimes. Anyways, she hosts the Asian Readathon every May for the Asian Pacific Islander month. I like participating in that, so I wanted to make sure I prioritize some reads for that. Traditionally speaking, she encourages people to read a wide array of different voices or ethnicities, specifically from different countries. And I've kept that in mind in curating this list. Again, this is not necessarily all of them because some of them are on my backlist TBR. With that said, let's get into the books I'm prioritizing for the Asian Readathon this May. First up with that is going to be The Invisible Hotel, published in 2024, 320 pages. It's a fiction, fantasy, reflective horror book about a woman who explores her connection to a mysterious hotel that embodies her family's dark past and national trauma of the Korean War, challenging her to understand her identity and history. This is an arc. It was on my last TBR. It actually was published in March, and I hate I did not get to it, but I want to. It seems intriguing. It's not on audio, unfortunately, but I still want to prioritize it, and I figured, why not fit it in to the Asian Readathon? As far as the author's background, their voice, their particular perspective, I don't know based off of who they are, but their character is Korean, so I'm assuming we're looking at a Korean perspective. I'm sort of listing this as the book that is highlighting a Korean viewpoint. The next pick for the Asian Readathon will be The Dead Take the A Train by Cassandra Khaw and Richard Caudry, published in 2023, 391 pages, urban fantasy horror. It's a vibrant horror fantasy where zombies, gods, and ghosts intertwine, featuring necromancers and the mystery of the restless dead. Cassandra Khaw is Malaysian. I wanted to read one of their books, one because I wanted to make sure I focus on some queer authors specifically, and I was hesitant on what to pick up, partly because while they had that, I don't know what it's called, I just remember that extremely almost demonic, like smear of a ghost cover, and it seemed intriguing, but everyone who read that seemed to absolutely hate it. So I decided to pick one that seemed to appeal more to me, hence me choosing this one. The cover is gorgeous, and the setup seems like it could be fun. And from the reviews that I've read from people whose reviews I tend to trust, just seeing this is the best option to choose from. So I'm choosing this one more for the author than for the book itself. So we'll see how I feel about it. Then next up, we have The Last Dragoners of the Barbarazar by Indra Das, published in 2023. This is a 119-page novella, fiction fantasy, described as reflective and mysterious. In a whimsical reimagining of Calcutta, a young boy uncovers his hidden lineage as a dragon keeper thrust into a secret world of magic. This one, again, is for the author specifically. I found out that Indra Das has a new author. They are also queer. Specifically, I remember adoring their first novel called The Devourers, which was sort of a werewolf retelling set in India, and it was very queer. I absolutely adored it as a horror book. The writing was so beautiful, and just the queer love was just absolutely exactly what I wanted. As soon as I realized I had a book, naturally I had to pick it up. Then the next book will be The Deep Sky by Yumi Kitatsi, published in 2023. This is nearly 400 pages, science fiction thriller. It's described as adventurous and emotional. I do not have the exact plot, but I know it has to do with a cosmic journey to search for another place to live. Basically, it's a space arc. I believe the description I have here is not correct, so I will not read it to you. This author is Japanese, so that is the perspective that's being highlighted here. I am reading this one largely because I've just heard really good things about this book. One, I love the idea of a space arc. I've talked on radio how I love space travel, all things to do with space. Something like River Solomon's An Unkindness of Ghosts. I love the setup of a space arc, and I just think it could be really intriguing. And I love this from the sort of philosophical perspective that you tend to get in that kind of scenario. So that, coupled with some of the reviews that I've heard that seem to suggest that it's just a really thoughtful book, just a series of positive reviews that brought this book to my attention, and that's why I wanted to prioritize it here. So I'm honestly very hopeful this could be like a favorite if it hits the right notes for me. And next up we have The 100 Years' War on Palestine by Rashid Khalidi, published in 2020. This is 336 pages. It's history, nonfiction, analytical and critical. It's a historical analysis of the Israel-Palestine conflict, tracing its roots through colonialism, resistance, and the ongoing struggle for justice. This book is one of the many that I sought out after reading Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis. I talk about my blind spots when it comes to the Israel-Palestine conflict and the atrocities going on there, and my need to address it more directly. So you can check out that vlog for that discussion, but this is why I decided now is the time for me to try and find more books on the subject. I did as deep a dive as I could find, and this just seemed like one of the best books I could look into as far as highlighting the history of the conflict and specifically looking at it from a colonial lens. Finally, we have Organ Meats by Ming Chang, published in 2023. This is 288 pages. It's horror, fiction, fantasy, also queer and magical realism. A vivid tale intertwining the fates of two girls through a bizarre lineage of dog-headed women and women-headed dogs, exploring the depth of their companionship amidst a backdrop of mythical quests and macabre transformations. Published by an author who is Taiwanese-American. Ming Chang wrote a short story collection a couple of years ago that I read as an ARC, and I remember really enjoying it. I thought the writing was beautiful, and the queerness really resonated with me. I think that's why I picked this up. I don't feel as strongly about their writing as, say, Andrew Doss, but I remember really liking the writing, and I wanted to give it another chance. I wanted to give her another chance to see what she might do in a full novel. This is one that I honestly did not even know existed until I started seeking out books for the readathon. It's one of those things where, of course, I have books in my mind that I already want to read. It motivates me, of course, to review other authors or other books that might be interesting to me. And so I'm glad, because it was this and also the Andrew Doss's new book. I don't think I would have seen either of these as existing, and I'm really excited, honestly, to be delving more into their backlog, because there were two authors that I really liked and want to explore more about. But now those are all the books I'm going to be prioritizing in this TBR. Of course, there are other books I'm going to try and read. The goal is, though, for this list is to make something that is doable, accomplishable for the next 3 months. That means 5 books I'm committing to for each month, specifically, more or less. Hopefully, I can accomplish it. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. I thank you so much for sticking around. Let me know what your plans are. Do you have anything specifically that you're hoping to read for this next quarter? Or do you have a really good quarter to begin with for this first quarter of the year? Hard to believe we've already been through an entire quarter, but we're here. Anyways, I'm rambling. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Stay safe, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.